450 troops now being sent over. When the president was saying, and this really struck me, Andrew, when he said, well, we really need to understand how recruitment for the Iraqi military is taking place, this recruitment for security forces. Have we not been over there for over 15 years now, training them? Don't you think we would know?
You know, you're absolutely right. The problem is that sometimes a nation has to act on principle and sometimes it has to act on self-interest. The problem with Obama is that when he acts on self-interest, it's not the nation's self-interest, it's his. The things that he is doing are, you're absolutely right, are completely political. They're based on what he feels he wants his legacy to be, what he feels he wants his image to be. He's sending more soldiers over there, but they're being sent over essentially to do rudimentary training, which is not really going to help this situation. I mean, it's ironic, if Obama weren't protected by his magical media cloak of invisibility, people would be pointing out that had he left almost this number of troops in place at the end of the war, ISIS would never have gotten to where it has now. But the problem is he's putting these soldiers in there to do the things that are not the things that we need done. What we need is spotters to help our bombing campaign. We need leaders. I mean, these guys, Ash Carter, the defense secretary, said a few days ago that the Iraqis lack the will to fight. But who could blame them? The brave Iraqi soldiers who go out to fight are abandoned by their leaders. They complain that their leaders disappear in the night and fly away on helicopters. They need Americans in there to show them the way. And lest we get too cynical, let's not forget that these ISIS guys are monsters. These guys are out of Game of Thrones. They're like the armies of the night from Game of Thrones. If you lose to them, they come in, they rape and murder your women, they rape and murder your children, they kill the men. If you're going to fight them, you've got to win. You've got to feel that you've got a chance to win. Who would have the nerve to stand up against them without the leadership that's going to help you win?
And the message that it sends for the president to stand up there and say, well, we don't really have a strategy. And then a couple of days later, oh, by the way, we're sending 450 troops. Now, maybe they had that already planned, Andrew, or maybe it's just a response to sort of the reaction, because the Pentagon was quite angry. They were sort of shaking their head. A couple of them responded in the media to the administration saying, well, yeah, we have a strategy. Do you think that 450 number, is that something? Do you think that they already had that orchestrated? Is that just a coincidence that it happens a couple of days after the president says there's no strategy?
I don't know when they, it's so, they're parceling out this help in such little dribs and drabs and sending them in to do what doesn't really need to be done. Yes, the Iraqi soldiers need to be trained, but they're essentially getting basic training. You can't send these guys out with basic training to fight an onslaught, a wave of death like ISIS. They're not getting the kind of help that an ally of America, which now essentially the free Iraqis should be, they're not getting the kind of help that they should get. And let's not forget, we should never forget, and one of the things I really like that you said in your opening statement was you traced this back to Obama's campaign promises. Those campaign promises were mistaken to begin with. He said that we have to abandon the war in Iraq and we have to win the war in Afghanistan. Let's not forget, that was the other half. He called that the necessary war based on low information voters, perception that Osama bin Laden had some kind of dealings with Afghanistan, which he had, but they were not the source of the problem. So he hasn't won in Afghanistan. He's turned Afghanistan into a terrible mess. He sent a surge in there which cost us more troops than died at any time during the Bush administration and accomplished absolutely nothing. And meanwhile, he abandoned the victory W. Bush had won in Iraq. He abandoned that. And don't forget that, for purely political reasons, he abandoned a victory and surrendered to one of the most evil forces that's been on the earth for many a year, So it really is based on politics.